All right. What's up, everyone? Day 21, and I'm here to go back over a topic I covered like over 2 weeks ago now, I think. um, my recording software, OBS, was not working properly and did not record my screen, and I've been lazy about re recording it, but I think this is actually a really cool topic, so I've been wanting to go back and do it again, and I'm going to do that today. And the headline that I have, um, maybe slightly clickbaity, but I think it's okay because this is actually how this question is often framed: is Japanese a tonal language? And I have already done this once, but I was just looking at this again and seeing how hilarious it is that if you just type that question, is Japanese tonal, into Google, you look down at the first two results. The first one, the bolded text says, no, Japanese is not a tonal language. And then the second one says, yes, Japanese is a tonal language. The third is kind of a mixed answer. I mean, you go down, they're all disagreeing with each other. So, like, what the heck, right? How can the top two Google results, both of which I'm sure are, reasonably reliable sources, say exactly opposite things? I think the good news is that the ambiguity is in what the word tonal means, not in what's going on in Japanese. And it's actually pretty easy to describe. I mean, maybe not easy, but it's more straightforward than this confusion might imply to describe what's going on in Japanese. And I mean, the reality is always more nuanced, right? You can decide what box to put it in, but I'm just going to describe what's going on in Japanese. I'm not really going to try to answer the question, is it tonal, because it just becomes a terminology question. I don't think that's as interesting. The thing I will say, I have this in my notes here, very often the question is framed as, is Japanese a tonal language like Chinese? Because people know about languages like the Chinese languages, Thai, Vietnamese. They kind of have a vague sense of those being tonal languages and sort of how that works. And, if you don't know a lot about East Asian languages, you might think that Japanese or Korean or whatever function in a similar way. That can be much more clearly answered. It's a resounding no. The Japanese intonation system is very different from Chinese. And the other thing I will say is that every language has some rules for what to do with the pitch of your voice, right? Every language has rules governing intonation. English makes use of contrastive stress, of which the pitch of your voice is a major element. So, English has contrasts like permit, the noun, versus permit, the verb, or White House. The White House is a specific place in Washington, D.C., whereas the White House, that's just a house that's white that I'm talking about. And you can tell by the pattern of my stress, anyway, that it's different. In English, stress governs a lot of things. It governs pitch, and it governs pitch in a non-straightforward way. Also, it's not even that stress is higher pitched or something. It just changes the stress pattern in a way that I can't describe and is not worth getting into. Someone in the comments the last time I covered this got after me about that, and it's true that it's a less direct relationship than in Japanese that I'm not going to describe. But in English, stress also dictates volume. It also dictates the timing of syllables. In Japanese, there's something that's kind of similar to stress. Not really. I think it's more similar to English stress than to Chinese tone, actually. But one of the several ways that it's unlike English stress is that it doesn't really affect volume or timing. In the last video in this series on Japanese phonology, that this is going to be part of a playlist, I talked about mores. Mores are the unit in Japanese that mostly dictates timing, the distribution of timing of different sounds, and I'll put a link to that in the video description. But basically, when I talk about the Japanese intonation system, it really only structurally functions a little bit like stress, but it really only tells you about pitch. It's not dictating these other aspects of the word. Right, so it's similar to English, kind of, but not really. One way is that it only dictates pitch. Another way, well, I'll just get into what the rules are and I'll point out how this is different from English. So basically, the rule in Japanese, and I'll actually pull up, I always use Wikipedia. The Wikipedia page has some great examples of this. You have a word with several moras. If you don't know what a mora is, just go back and watch my last video. Up to one mora in the word is accented. So if you have a two mora word, like hashi, I'm not going to assign any accent to that right now, just you have the two moras, ha and shi. There are kind of three logical possibilities for how that word can be accented. It can be accented on the first mora, ha, the second mora, shi, or on neither. And this is how it differs from English. This is the structural way. Sometimes in linguistics, I like to think about a difference between structural elements and kind of surface elements. So what I mean by structure is just like, what is the information that you have about a word? In English, the information you have about a word is that exactly one syllable in the word is special. In Japanese, it's that one or zero syllables, or moras, sorry, in Japanese it's moras, one or zero moras of the word is special. So that's kind of a structural thing. It's what's the information that you need. The information you need is which one is special, as opposed to something like Chinese or Thai, where it's just for every syllable, what tone is this? That's a very different type of information. The more surface level stuff is, in Japanese it only affects pitch. In English it affects all these things about how the word is pronounced. But yeah, that's the key structural difference, is that unlike in English, right, in English we have permit and permit, but there's no variant of that. There's no possible variant of that where neither syllable is stressed. But in Japanese, you can have this scenario in which no mora in a word has an accent, and I'll talk about what that means. So the pitch pattern that you get from a word arising from its accent, it's basically, the big picture is that the pitch rises slowly across the word. The highest pitch is on the accented syllable, or the accented mora. Again, I'm sorry. Moras are the unit that we're talking about here. It peaks on the accented mora, and then immediately following the accented mora, and this is the most salient, the most audible thing about Japanese pitch accent, is that immediately after the accented mora, pitch goes down, and it pretty much stays down. If you have a following particle like wa, ni, o, whatever, the accent pattern carries across onto that. And that fact is one of the major ways. Here, I'll just give some examples. Okay, right. So hashi. We've got a recording we can hear. I'll play the recording and kind of talk about my interpretation of what's going on there.
These examples are meant to demonstrate Japanese pitch accent. Example 1. Hashi, meaning chopsticks with an accent on the first mora.
Right. So if you're not used to thinking about it, it can be hard to hear pitch. But basically, what she said here was hashi. Right? Hashi. With a higher pitch on the first mora. And so what happened there was the first mora is accented, so it's higher in pitch. Immediately there's a drop, and the rest of the word, the last mora, is lower. Ha-shi. So we've basically just got this high-low contrast. Let's hear the next two.
Hashi,
Hashi.
Meaning bridge,
Hashi.
with an accent on the second mora. Hashi,
Hashi.
Meaning edge with no pitch accent.
Right. So both of these two words have kind of the opposite thing, where the second mora is higher than the first. Hashi. Hashi. Right. Sometimes it's said, and this is something that I don't really know. I'll have to spend more time with Japanese to know. But I suspect this may be a feature of kind of speaking more slowly or carefully or in a more enunciated way, that on an accentless word, like the word meaning edge here, the rise in pitch is smaller. So to me it sounded something like, for bridge she said hashi, and for edge she said hashi, right? So it's a less dramatic rise in pitch. But again, that may be the kind of thing, I suspect, that maybe is not so obvious if you're just listening to more fluid speech. It may be a feature of more careful speech. The more salient way to tell, to distinguish between an accentless word and one with an accent on the last mora, is kind of that other part I talked about, where a particle afterward has the accent pattern carried forward onto it. And so what that means is, okay, so, well, let's listen to it again.
Compare. Hashi.
Okay.
Hashi. Hashi.
Okay, so that's a nice comparison.
Example 2. Ima. Meaning...
Okay, she's not going to do the ones with the particle afterward, but I'll pronounce them as best I can. Obviously, I'm not a native Japanese speaker. I'm not a Japanese speaker. But I think I can still illustrate the important part of what's going on here. So, if you've got a particle afterward, for something where the accent is on the first mora, like the word for chopsticks, maybe that's the most straightforward, right? Before it was hashi, with the highest pitch on the first mora. If you add something, it just stays low. Hashini, right? So the word just keeps being in a low pitch. The contrast that I really want to highlight is between the other two, between bridge and edge. So let's say both of them are pronounced with this low-high pattern by themselves. Hashi, hashi. But the important way that you can tell the difference is that if the accent is on the last mora, what that means, because it's accented, is that immediately after the accent, the pitch has to decrease dramatically. So you say like hashini, hashini, right, where you peak at the end of the word and you drop back down on the particle. And that's how you can tell it's accented on the last mora, as opposed to something like hashini, where there's no drop. You just keep kind of rising or staying sort of high in pitch across the whole end of the word and the particle. Right. So that's basically the difference, and that's basically all of the accent patterns that are available to a word. You can have it hit a peak somewhere before the end of the word and then drop down in the word. You can have it peak at the end of the word and then drop for any falling particles, or there could just be no drop and it can carry across the word and anything that's kind of phonetically attached to it, any particles. Right, okay, so I pretty much covered everything that's written here. The last thing I want to say, but I think this carries more into the next chapter in my coverage of Japanese phonology, which is that sometimes you'll see it notated where the first syllable first mora of a word is marked as being low in pitch unless it has the accent. So if you have a word with 3 moras in it, if the second mora is accented, sometimes the first mora will be marked as being low in pitch. I don't think that's necessarily a binary thing. I don't think to my ear, from hearing Japanese for the last 3 weeks, you don't go straight from low to high and then back to low again following that accent. If you have something like a 3 mora word where the second mora is accented, the way that it sounds to me is that the first mora is lower, and because it's maybe lower than anything that follows it up to the accent, it might be marked as low just to point out that contrast, point out that there's a little bit of a rise in pitch before the drop. But I wouldn't think of it as being like a strong binary where it's like low, high, low. It's like start somewhere in the middle, rise a little bit, and then dramatically drops after the accent. I'll talk more about that, I think, the next chapter of this. I don't know exactly when I'm going to do it, but I'd like to talk again about kind of some of the more concrete ways of how to use this information and how to use resources telling you about Japanese pitch accent. But like, here's an example. On Wiktionary, this is the word for mountain, yama. where basically here the accent mark sloping downward means a low pitch. The accent mark going up means a high pitch, and so it's notated, this word that we can hear,
Yama,
as having a low pitch on the first mora and a high pitch on the second mora. So it represents it in this binary fashion where it just tells you if every syllable is low or high. But I think that's just kind of an oversimplification of what is really going on phonetically there. But anyway, that's what I'd like to talk about more next time, because there's more to say about this. I want to talk about the names for the different types of accent patterns, because there are names in Japanese linguistics for okay, so this is one of them, I guess. Odaka gata, names for all the different types of accent patterns. And more importantly, I think, and I think it mentions this on the Wikipedia article about Japanese pitch accent, that it actually varies by type of word. Like, most nouns are accentless. A lot of Chinese words are not accentless. A lot of Chinese words have an accent. And especially newer loanwords from English often have accents. I also think maybe native nouns tend to be unaccented, whereas, as far as I can tell, adjectives and verbs are much more likely to have a pitch accent. And a pitch accent in the middle of the word, I think, is pretty frequent. I've seen that a lot of verbs and adjectives in Japanese seem to have, like it says here, an accent on the second to last mora of the word. So the last mora of the word is going to be pronounced with this down step at a lower pitch than the rest of the word. So yeah, I'll get into all of that. One thing I don't know anything about, but I'm curious, is whether the fact that a lot of these Chinese loanwords have accent patterns to them, if that lines up somehow with what the tone pattern is in Chinese, and whether the accent in Japanese is kind of an attempt to mimic the tone contour that you get in Chinese. But yeah, I'll get into all that in the future. This is probably already a long enough. Yeah, so I've already been talking for 17 minutes as it is. That's more than long enough. But yeah, that should be an exciting thing to get into next time. So with that, I'll turn it back to the regularly scheduled programming of me trying to learn Japanese. Let me zoom these back out. I don't think I'll do all of my stuff for today right now. I've been finding it makes it a lot easier for me to spread throughout the day, so I probably won't. Maybe I'll just do about 60 review sentences right now and leave the rest for throughout my day. I mean, it's a Saturday, so I think I'll have lots of odds and ends throughout the day today to fit some sentences in. I don't necessarily want to do them all at once, but I can do some. I feel like I've been missing a lot of streams lately, so I might have some interesting things to say about some sentences. We'll see. 彼はできることした。Right. Okay, this is a cool one. The limit of his ability, basically. More literally.
彼はできる限りのことをした。
彼はできる限りのことをした。Oh, that's another one. Another little side phonetics topic I'd be interested in covering at some point is, here, I'll write this in my notes. The fact that like what's usually written as a G, like the G sound in Japanese, it's not always pronounced like that. Sometimes it's pronounced more like a ng, like an NG sound. If I can check that one off. And I think this can be very regional. I think in Japanese, this can be a big indicator of regional accent, is how you pronounce like g sounds. Yeah, that'll be a nice topic to do at some point. I just noticed that because here, even though this word would probably be written as or transcribed as like kagiri with a G, to me it sounds really like they're saying kangiri as though it were an NG.
彼はできる限りのことをした。
Actually, let me play it slow.
彼はできる限りのことをした。
Anyway, I'll do that at some point. 父は元気です。
父は元気です。
I just saw an NPR TikTok about some Japanese bakery and in Tokyo, and the lady was speaking Japanese and they just had it subtitled in English, and I couldn't really understand any of it for the most part, but I did catch that she said the word genki, meaning like health or good health. And it was subtitled, she was just saying I'm in good health or whatever, and I felt proud that I recognized that word. Let's see. そう考えI don't remember on this one.
そう考えざるを得ない。
ざる。そう考えざる。Ah, right. Okay, I remember this. そう考えざるを得ない。もうダメだ。
もうダメだ。
ダメ。Like, no use. もうダメだ。あまりに早く着いた。あまりに is too much.
あまりに早く着いた。
彼に来てもらう。
彼に来てもらう。
その罪の責任は彼にある。
その罪の責任は彼にある。
その罪の責任は彼にある。彼女はとてもかわいい。Okay.
彼女はとてもかわいい。
That is one word that I think I had been exposed to before I started learning Japanese. Kawaii. 友達が今晩来ます。
友達が今晩来ます。
今晩来ます。友人に会うためです。
友人に会うためです。
明日彼を
明日彼を訪問します。
訪問します。彼を訪問します。
でも高いよ。
I remember that. でも高いよ。やるな。なかなかやるな。
なかなかやるな。
なかなかやるな。彼は 彼は絵の才能がある。
彼は絵の才能がある。
彼はsomething 委員会の something 委員だ。
彼は委員会の委員だ。
委員会の委員だ。料理うまいね。
料理うまいね。
料理うまいね。私だけが
私だけが残った。
残ったビールをください。ビールをください。無理するなよ。unreasonable. Don't be unreasonable.
無理するなよ。
無理するなよ。
負けない。
負けない負けるHuh. Okay. 負けない。我々は彼の子に驚いた。
我々は彼の行為に驚いた。
行為に驚いた。大阪で雪が降った。
大阪で雪が降った。
大阪で雪が降った。彼は約束を守る。
彼は約束を守る。
約束を守る。水の
水のおかわりをください。
代わりをください。水のおかわりください。Huh. Because this character I thought meant like time period. Seems like it's all over the place semantically. 代わりをください。僕のショールは君の2倍だ。
僕の収入は君の2倍だ。
収入 OK 収入は君の2倍。
僕の収入は君の2倍だ。
2倍だ。2人は前とDon't remember this.
2人は面と向かった。
面と向かう 受かった。二人は面と向かった。彼は私の空に座って。I think this was the one where commenters were like disagreeing with the recording about how this character should be read, but let's see.
彼は私の側に座った。
Right, so this says gawa, but then the comments are like, no, it needs to be soba. Sorry, soba. Gawa. Gawa is like literally the side of your body, whereas soba is like beside you. Watashi no soba ni suwatta. What is this? I always enjoy reading these katakana because they're usually English loanwords. Information. Nice. Information. Let's see. Tanoshi. Is it doka? It's kind of expressing hope or something. Tanoshi. Ryoko.
どうか楽しい旅行を。
どうか楽しい旅行。私のThis? I remember it being this, but I don't remember why those characters make sense here. Mada desu ka?
私の注文はまだですか？
注文はまだですか？なんで？
なんで？
水のWhat was this? 代わりをください。
水のおかわりをください。
また another またいつか some other time, right? Whenever else. またいつか電話します。
またいつか電話します。
私たちは同じI don't remember how to say this, but it's clearly it's got the character for year in it.
私たちは同じ年齢です。
同じ年齢That, just in all languages, is the hardest thing for me to say. Is an N followed by an R. That's always the worst thing for me in Spanish to try to say. In Japanese too. It just destroys me. Nowadays. This. 彼は住所が変わった。
彼は住所が変わった。
住所が変わった。彼はサッカーです。
彼は作家です。
一人を選んでくれ。
一人を選んでくれ。選んでくれ。僕はとても
嬉しい。
Okay. 嬉しい。 時計を、時計をなくしました。
時計をなくしました。
なくしました。なくす means to lose. Yeah. 時計をなくしました。星が見え、見え始めた。星が見え始めた。
星が見え始めた。
島が見えてきた。
島が見えてきた。
彼はますます有名になった。
彼はますます有名になった。
ますます有名になった。彼はwhat was this? 二人、辞任 something.
彼は詩人だ。
詩人。彼はshe, right. Because I remember this because I don't actually know this character from Chinese, but the famous like poet eating 10,000 lions in a stone den or whatever, that's just different tones on shi in Mandarin if you read it now. Right, poet presumably is read shi. This character is probably read shi in Mandarin, so shi jin. 天気がI always get motsu and matsu mixed up. I think this is motsu, meaning to hold. Matsu is weight, and it looks a little different than this character, but similar. 天気が持つかな。
天気が持つかな。
持つかな。部の責任者別れです。
部の責任者は彼です。
部の責任者は彼です。気分は最高。
気分は最高。
頭が痛い。
頭が痛い。
彼らは彼の決定に腹が立った。
彼らは彼の決定に腹が立った。
彼らは彼の決定に腹が立った。彼女起こしてきなさい。
彼女を起こしてきなさい。
彼は私の求めた。
彼は私の助言を求めた。
助言。Okay. 助言を求めた。彼を信用するな。
彼を信用するな。
彼を信用するな。Okay, there's both readings. 彼を信用するな。難しい。Maybe 難しい。
難しい状況です。
状況です。難しい状況です。父は毎朝散歩する。
父は毎朝散歩する。
彼は景観を見て
彼は警官を見て逃げた。
景観を見て逃げた。逃げた。天気が
天気が回復した。
回復した。天気が回復した。彼のが心配だ。
彼の命が心配だ。
彼の命が心配だ。命。彼の命が心配だ。
黙っていなさい。
黙って。So rude. 黙る。黙って。Be silent. トムはになっていない。
トムは横になっていない。
横になっていない。OK。横になっていない。学校something 業した。
学校を卒業した。
卒業した。卒業した。卒業した。彼は電話を切った。
彼は電話を切った。
Cut the phone. 彼はイタリア人だ。
彼はイタリア人だ。
イタリア人だ。It's gotta be this, but I don't know how to say it. が好きかね。
田舎が好きかね。
田舎。Oh, that's one of these inseparable readings. This is a native term, I guess. 田舎が好きかね。トムは横になっていない。
トムは横になっていない。
横になっていない。値段が高すぎる。
値段が高すぎる。
高すぎる。私はsomething 者です。
私は患者です。
患者です。彼は私のおじです。
彼は私のおじです。
私のおじです。人は必ず人は必ず死ぬ。
人は必ず死ぬ。
人は必ず死ぬ。彼は家族をOh, okay, I think this is the first sentence that I just saw yesterday. maybe I'll call it here then. That's usually where I draw the line, is stuff that I saw yesterday versus earlier. So, how long have I been streaming? It'd be nice to stream for an hour. I mean, whatever. There's other stuff I want to do. I'll get to the rest of this later. Yeah, I'll cut it off here. But rest assured, as my graph should tell you, I am nothing if not a man of consistency. That's so far from true, but I will do my sentences today.